Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. Welcome to Unless, the podcast, inspired by that Dr. Seuss quote from the Lorax that reminds us of the role we can each play in making the world a better place. Join Dr. Hemma Lomax and her guests as they share incredible stories of being moved to decisive action and perseverance, leading to tangible impact at scale. This podcast is a production of Corporate Compliance Insights.
Thoughts come from different places, from what I've studied. Thoughts come from your own conscious mind. It can come from your subconscious mind, your program mind, but they can also be picked up from the ether, literally. You can actually pick up other people's thoughts, and it's all scientifically proven now. And apparently we get 60,000 to 90,000 thoughts or more per day. And so as we receive information and it comes in the form of a thought, we notice, is this helpful or is it not? And so I've become very good at noticing how I feel. Usually you'll catch it if you're not feeling so great. What am I thinking of? So practical steps that Bob taught me, and I love what Bob taught me. He said, think of it as a train that's running through your mind all day long of thoughts. And if a thought comes across your mind, it's not helpful to you and others, just say next, 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 until you get to a positive thought that is helpful and for you and for others.
That's Cliona O'Hara, CEO of the Napoleon Hill Institute, experienced entrepreneur, philanthropist, and thought leader on personal development. I am Dr. Hemma Lomax, and this is Unless, the podcast. Today, I am thrilled to be hosting the fabulous Cliona O'Hara as my special guest. She is a personal development and coaching giant and also the CEO of the Napoleon Hill Institute. Cliona has systematically shared her gifts and mastery of the laws of abundance, the laws of attraction, and manifestation with the world. If you are a success seeker or you want to learn how to fulfill your greatest wishes and achieve your highest goals, you are in the right place today. Cliona, what a unique pleasure to have the chance to speak with you today. Welcome to Unless, the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hemma. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so grateful for the opportunity.
Oh, well, I am the one that's grateful. I know gratitude is one thing we'll talk about, but gosh, talk about manifesting your dreams. Getting to speak to you today about Napoleon Hill is definitely one of my dreams, and we'll see why. If I may, you've got a beautiful accent. I know you're from Derry, Northern Ireland. We're both from the British Isles. May I ask you to kick things off to explain your journey from Derry, Northern Ireland to becoming the CEO of the Napoleon Hill Institute here in the United States?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. I'll do the short version of it because it's quite a long story. Yeah. So as you mentioned, I was born in Northern Ireland in Derry, in a little city. There's actually a Netflix series called Derry Girls. I don't know if you've ever watched it, but if you haven't, go ahead and watch it. It's like someone followed me around with a camera with my three friends in school. We wore exactly the same green uniform. We get up to all sorts of antics like they did in that show. It's hilarious. It's actually really funny. But, you know, I grew up in Northern Ireland. And as you know, there was war and troubles back there. And I was born in the 80s, early 80s. And so there was still a lot left over from war, a lot of depression, a lot of poverty, Hemma. And where I lived, I was actually in a very low income, poverty stricken area. I was living in government housing, a little bungalow, me, my grandmother, my granny, and my two sisters. And we all shared a room. So that was just to paint the picture of how I grew up. We had very little. My grandmother, God bless her, was raising three girls, if you can imagine, by herself. And Granny Peggy, I talk about her a lot when I speak to people, because even though she was poor, she carried herself like a queen. She always carried herself like a queen. So I look back now, and just like Steve Jobs says, you can connect the dots looking back. I connect the dots looking back. Even though I was in poverty, I didn't have parents, mother and father, the normal upbringing. I had my grandmother, and she was a lady. She was a lady. And actually, it's so funny because now I went to get my earrings on. And now it just occurred to me that's what she would have done. She wouldn't have met with anyone unless her hair, her makeup, and her earrings were on. I just realized that. So there you go. So I was blessed to be raised by Queen Peggy. She worked in She worked for the government cleaning toilets, Hemma. So you can imagine, such a hardworking woman. She worked 6 days a week and she had very little, but whatever she had, she made it work. She raised us so well. And so I was a dreamer. I always watched those American TV shows and movies, and I always pictured myself living that life. So I had a very highly developed imagination because I didn't have my parents. I was a sad little girl. So I would be alone in my room and I would really use my imagination, and I'd be visualizing without realizing what I was doing. I would even draw like vision boards. Now I know what I was doing, right? So I used to draw pictures on my little wall of me living in America. I was painting a picture. And then fast forward, when I was about 16 years old, that's when I made a decision. I'm going to America. I'm going to go there. I'm going to follow the American dream. I landed in the US, and it wasn't picture perfect. I came with all the programming, all the poverty mindset, everything, you name it. I brought all that with me, but I had a dream and I had a vision and I had faith. I had incredible faith. I always had faith since I was a little girl. And so I arrived in America, and that's kind of how, the story led me to the United States. And if you want me to go into detail of what happened then, I can. You let me know.
I'd love you to talk about how we ended up at the CEO of the Napoleon Hill Institute. And again, I don't mind it being a long story. It's a fantastic. Yes. So please go for it.
Okay. So fast forward, I'm in the US. I'm completely lost. I think it's important to understand for 7 years, I was lost with old programming. I was 27 years old. I had no money. I was in Brooklyn, New York, in my apartment. I was waiting for my green card. So I didn't have the luxury of going out and getting any job I wanted. I had to follow all these rules, and I was waiting for my green card. And then one night I went out. I was invited by a friend to a restaurant, and I found the movie The Secret in a DVD disc outside a bathroom on a table. And that led me on this journey of personal growth, spiritual development. I'm like, what is going on? Why did no one tell me? Thoughts become things. What's the law of attraction? What is all this stuff, right? And so I became obsessed. It was like God had answered my prayer with this movie, led me to Bob Proctor. And then I discovered Napoleon Hill. And fast forward, I started applying these principles and working on myself. I did Tony Robbins. I did all these things. I became obsessed. And my life started getting better and better. I started manifesting money. I started a business. I started a little call center. And then fast forward, I decided to sell my business. And also I had shares in a family business. I decided to sell everything and pursue my purpose, my passion. And that was to give back what had been given to me. And that's when I decided to sell everything, become a coach with Bob Proctor's organization, who was in the secret. And then again, I got in the doors with Bob, and then I made another decision. I'm going to get to the top of this company somehow, some way, and I'm going to be mentored by Bob himself. And I did that. I got to the top of the coaching department within 3 months.
Yes.
Like in record speed. And then I worked my way up. I became the vice president of sales, inner circle coach. And I just kept climbing the ranks and working directly with Bob. And it just was incredible. And then, as you know, Bob passed away in February 2022. And that was it. I said, okay, now what? Because I had a vision, Hemma. My visions are very clear. I've been getting those since I was a child. I get pictures in my mind, and I believe that's God guiding me. Okay. I'm very spiritual. I don't hide that. But I had a vision. I was going to be Bob Proctor's partner, and I was going to own the company with him. So I was so confused when he died. I'm like, my visions always come true. What's going on? And then I prayed, I meditated, and then Napoleon Hill, his name kept coming to me. And I kept saying, God, tell me what to do. That's what I do. God, tell me what to do. I kept hearing Napoleon Hill, Napoleon Hill. So I reached out to the Napoleon Hill Foundation, which I didn't even know existed. I went there. I said, I don't know what we're supposed to do together, but we're meant to work together. Please have a meeting with me. I flew down. I met with the executive director, Don Green. I said, look, why don't we bring coaching to the world? Where's your coaching division? And he said, we don't have that. Plenty of people have tried and they've come along and said they were going to do it, but they didn't follow through. I said, please give me the opportunity. I can do it. And so that's how I ended up becoming the CEO of the Institute. And we're just over 2 years old now.
Well, congratulations with what you've achieved there. And I'm so glad that you spent the time to take us through that story. I deliberately wanted to ask that to start with, because so much of it is magical, but I also hear in what you say some themes, as you said, faith, vision, decision, persistence. Ability. And I know from my reading of Napoleon Hill's work, most famous for Think and Grow Rich, but we've got a number of many books that he's written, and many things, Laws of Success, Act Willing. I want to make sure people look at Napoleon Hill's work because it's fabulous. Also, you mentioned The Secret, and I have the book by Rhonda Byrne. I know the movie. It's available on YouTube, I think, maybe even Netflix. So I encourage my listeners to check it out because it is life-changing. But again, what strikes me about your story is you had some of those things innately and naturally as a child. Maybe when you read or saw The Secret or read Think and Grow Rich, you said, oh, this resonates with me. This is what's been key to my success. So I love to hear. Let me ask you a question about what you've learned from your experience and what you coach for. So unless the podcast is inspired by this idea that meaningful change requires someone to care deeply and take action. Is that right? Does Napoleon Hill teach that? Do you believe that caring deeply is part of it and taking action is critical?
100%. I mean, Napoleon Hill talks about, we call it PPA, which is plan, purpose, and action. And so I live by that. And caring, when you live on purpose, it means you care. It means you care for yourself, but you also care for why you're here on earth, right? So I would go back to PPA, plan, and then you have to make plan. It may not be the right plan, but we're supposed to, once we discover our purpose, we're supposed to make a plan. We're supposed to take action. If we're not, what are we doing? I always say we're cheating on our soul. We're cheating on our soul's purpose, because I believe we were all assigned a purpose at birth when we came here. And if we're cheating on that purpose, then we're not caring about ourselves or humanity. That's what I believe. Once you know, because if you don't know, you're still in ignorance. Not that anybody wants to be called ignorant, but you understand what I'm saying. I was ignorant for many years.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. And on purpose, one of the things I often say to myself is getting what you want isn't as hard as knowing what you want. And so, what's your advice to people that are a little bit lost when it comes to determining their purpose and why they're here on earth?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question, because I remember in my mid-20s when I had my awakening and discovered my purpose. It's a very painful place to be when you don't know your purpose. You get lost. You're lost in the environment. You're lost in what's going on in the world, and you're not living the life you're supposed to. And it's very painful and it's very confusing, and you don't feel a value, right? So my advice would be, get quiet with yourself. Meditation's very important. I meditate every day. I go within and I ask questions. So number one, find your own spiritual practice, whether it's praying and meditating, either or. Go into a quiet room, find your little quiet room where you talk to yourself and ask, why am I here? And listen. Why am I here? And listen. That's number one. And then number two, what are you great at? What are you really great at? And you can actually sit and talk about it for days with your friends, and you're so passionate about it and it lights you up. It gives you energy. I discovered my purpose by really seeing what made me come alive, what gives me energy. So ask yourself those questions. What are you great at? What gives you energy? And you can talk about it for days. And what do you want to give away to the world? What problems are you passionate? It's another question. What problems are you passionate about solving? Mm-hmm. And lean into that. What problems are you passionate about solving? and lean into that. What can you do better? What do you think you can do better? So get quiet, ask yourself those powerful questions and listen. You might not get the answers right away, but you can even ask and let go. And can I give another advice?
Please.
Before you go to sleep, you're commanding your subconscious mind and the superconscious mind, which is infinite intelligence, God, universe, whatever someone believes that higher power is. Before you go to sleep at night, ask the question, why am I here? What is my purpose? And do it every night for 30 nights, but do it with emotion and conviction. You can even say, I demand to know my purpose by tomorrow. And you let it go and watch what happens.
Yes. And I love that because, again, that's very decisive. If you don't know your purpose, choose to want to know your purpose and ask the question. I also love, the words you use, quiet and noise, right? Quieten down, quiet the noise, and then listen. Oftentimes we get in our own way, don't we? There's so much other noise that's getting in the way of actually listening to the answer to that question. So I think that's really important. And again, the advice to meditate, I'm doing the same thing because of you and because of the books I'm reading that you talk about. I've definitely brought that into my life, and it makes a big difference to try and practice. It's not easy, and the first time your mind will race, but to your point, do it regularly and do it 30 days in a row. Create the habit, and you are more likely to be connected to the higher power, to your point, whether it's God or the source or infinite universe. I love that. I love that. I wanted to ask you a bit more about Napoleon Hill, because, another part of your story that you've recounted here is that at first you figured out how to make riches, literal riches, to make money and wealth around you in a lifestyle that maybe you'd seen on the American TV shows. That resonates with me. I did the same thing, looked at those shows and thought, it's different over there. But at some point, it sounds like you decided that your purpose was actually to give back. And the wealth was helpful. Obviously, to grow to give is very helpful. I think Tony Robbins says, grow to give. But once you've got in a situation where you can help others, is it right that your focus shifted to a purpose of philanthropy and giving?
Yes, that's the heart of everything I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I believe when I focus on that, and of course, it's okay for me to say that because now wealth is here, right? But I had to build, before I got into coaching in the personal development industry, I had to build a wealth consciousness first. Mm-hmm. So I didn't just get here and then now I just want to give back. No, I had to learn how to receive money, how to earn money, how to create the consciousness and the programming to receive money. But at the heart of everything I'm doing is I want to give back. I really, and you will see, because everything I say starts to happen, I'm going to help women. I'm going to help especially single moms all over the world. I am going to make big moves. So that drives me. That's part of my burning desire, is to help. I mean, Hemma, we have people that have come into the Napoleon Hill Institute and we don't, obviously we send people out to get mental health help as well. It's two different, there's a line in the sand, but people that are getting mental health help have come to us. Some people have been suicidal and within 30 days, they're alive. I have multiple clients right now that did not want to be here on earth. And 4 months later, they're living a completely different life. They're thriving. That's what lights me up. That's why I'm doing this.
It's such important work. And I'm so grateful for you and for what you do in that space, because it's so needed. And you're right that there is a medical practice that can help people with mental health, but it's magical, really, how, and I think there's studies have been done on what mindset shifts and positive thinking and Napoleon Hill's principles can do in this space. So I'm glad that you're leaning in there. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is, you mentioned women, and I know I've heard you say before that sometimes women are programmed not to want wealth or not to ask for wealth. Maybe even, in the British Isles, I remember thinking in the UK, don't talk about money, don't ask for more, be humble and be grateful. And it's a little bit different in the US. You can want for more. It feels a bit more comfortable to do that. Tell me about that. How that's impacted you? Is it true that women don't typically ask for wealth or aspire for wealth?
For sure, 100%, especially from where we're from, in the British Isles, in Ireland, countries like Poland. Like what I've discovered from coaching people when I worked for Bob, I coach people all over the world in every country. I study their paradigm programming. Mm-hmm. And so I know our programming very well because I'm from there. We were raised to not talk about money, not want money. And so when I started earning money and I started changing my life, I actually would receive hate mail. And I still do get it every now and again. And it's usually from people back home, which is heartbreaking because they're still programmed that, especially women, what are you doing? Looking for money? Stay at home, be a good mom, get a little job maybe on the side. It's that programming that's keeping our people in poverty mindset. We are no use to the world if we're in poverty. So that's my burning desire is to wake women up. You, especially women, the divorce rate is what now? Almost 50%. Do you know how many women I've coached? They had no backup plan, zero backup plan. They had no education. They had no business, no job, no skills because they stayed at home and they were caregivers of the children. They were at home. So I think every woman needs to learn how to earn money and get rich. Right. Because we women give back into the community. Look what we do with the house. We turn it into a home, right. A beautiful home. Men can't do what we do. Like we literally turn a house into a home. It's our nature is to give back and create. That's who we are. And so every woman, whoever's watching this, get rich. Find a way to get rich because you will help many more people.
Right. And that is congruent with our roles as servant leaders, as people that want to create generational wealth and give for our children, our children's children. So we shouldn't be ashamed of leaning into that. And oftentimes, I mean, even just the title of Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, is off-putting to people that don't want to talk about wealth.
Yes. Yes.
And I will say, I think if on my reading, when he says rich, he means much more than just material things and money.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. But sticking with the money for a moment, I think one of his principles is that thoughts become things. And you've talked about a number of thoughts that could get in the way of us materializing our desires. So talk us through that a little bit. How has this concept, thoughts become things, influenced you? Give us some practical advice about what that means. If I'm sold that I want to become rich, now what do I do?
So thoughts come from different places. From what I've studied, thoughts come from your own conscious mind. It can come from your subconscious mind, your program mind, but they can also be picked up from the ether, literally. You can actually pick up other people's thoughts, and it's all scientifically proven now. And apparently we get 60,000 to 90,000 thoughts or more per day. And so as we receive information and comes in a form of a thought, we notice, is this helpful or is it not? And so I've become very good at noticing how I feel. Usually you'll catch it if you're not feeling so great. What am I thinking of? So practical steps that Bob taught me, and I love what Bob taught me. He said, think of it as a train that's running through your mind all day long of thoughts. And if a thought comes across your mind, it's not helpful to you and others, just say next, until you get to a positive thought that is helpful and for you and for others. And so I do that all day long. Some days the train gets stuck there and I don't catch it on time, but I notice how I feel and I go, wait a minute, what am I thinking about? No, this is not helpful. For example, a thought of worry and doubt. What if, for example, I'm selling my house right now? My real estate agent's more scared than me. She's like, well, what if we do? I'm like, stop, cancel. Don't say that. We will sell this house. Don't you worry. So I'm constantly choosing thoughts that are in alignment with what I want and what I want to believe, because belief manifests.
And I think I'm hearing belief manifests either way. So if your thoughts are positive in the direction of what you want, you'll get there. But if your thoughts are negative in the opposite direction, you might be manifesting that as well. Is that right?
100%. Our fears will always manifest. They're so powerful. The frequency of fear, everything's a frequency, a vibrational frequency. You feeling is conscious awareness of vibrational frequency. So your feelings are telling you what you're giving off and what you're attracting back. So you have to be very careful with that. For example, when I'm coaching people and they say, oh, I'm in so much debt, and they're writing a goal to get out of debt, please, everyone listening to this, make sure you never have a goal to get out of debt, because you're telling the universe, debt, energy, focus, debt, you're going to attract more debt. We never focus on debt. We focus on abundance, overflow, exactly how much you want to earn, and don't even think about debt. Yeah.
And that word abundance is a good one as well. And I hear a lot about the law of abundance. And again, juxtaposed to this idea of scarcity, the fear mindset brings in this idea of scarcity, that there's only so much for anyone. And how am I going to get mine? Tell me a bit about how you coach your clients to avoid the scarcity mindset and move into the abundance mindset. What does that mean?
Well, first of all, I always have our clients focus on what they have today. How does that feel, right? Focus on what you have today. Look around you, what you have to be grateful for, all the physical things, everything in your life. So that's you moving into gratitude, moving on to the frequency of here's what I have, right? And so we give them step-by-step instructions on how to reprogram their subconscious mind towards wealth. You should set a goal for money that you've never had before. It should be something that scares you a little bit, not too high. You have no idea how you're going to get it, but you should set a goal and write that goal every single day. So repetition, we script every morning at 5:30 in the morning, Hemma. I think you know that. Like, we're writing out our goal and its intent, how much money we want to be earning, what we want in return. So we coach people to script out what they want, and that's starting to change your programming. And then when it comes to scarcity mindset, like, go buy yourself something. Go have faith, right? It's about becoming the woman. I had to become her before I had what she had. Okay, and that's very important. Oh, and that's the same for men. You have to become him before you will have what he has.
That makes so much sense. I mean, back to your idea of a vision, it's like, why wait? Why not live the life that you want today? And that's not always about material things. We're not talking about trying to spend money that you don't have. We're talking about imagining yourself, using the beautiful imagination to see where you are. I'll give you a personal example of that. I was let go from a job last summer, and I said to myself, oh, Hemma, one day this will be the best thing that ever happened to you. And I said, well, hold on. Catch the train, get rid of that one, and say, why not today? This is the best thing that ever happened.
Yes.
And true enough, since that day, I've been living in a much more abundant, joyous, positive way, just from that slight change from one day to today. So I believe you that it really is important to live your goals today, live as if you were there. You'll laugh. I'll give you one other story. I went through the Napoleon Hill workbook and had to write that statement. And it's very difficult, especially to put a number on it. But I went to Amazon and bought some $1 million bills and put them in the frame.
I love it.
You hear about the people writing the checks for themselves. I'm like, fine, I'm just the visual that I look at every day. So I don't think about how it's not going to happen and all the reasons I couldn't possibly and how difficult it is. Instead, I think I've learned from your teaching that you should quiet that saboteur brain and say, well, actually, what if it all works out?
Yes. We call it what if up. What if?
Okay. Yeah. What if up? Yeah.
What if? Yeah. And another thing you can do too, I love that with the $1 million bills. For everyone watching this, I have it in my wallet and Bob used to have it in his wallet. Go to the bank, put a big stack of money in your wallet, whatever you can afford to get out of the bank, whether it's $1,000, $10,000, 10,000 probably wouldn't fit in, but take a nice chunk of money, cash, and always have it in your wallet. Don't spend it. You can keep replenishing it if you do, but always have enough chunk there to feel wealth, to feel like I always have money.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, one of the things I'm doing at the moment is trying to help I'm in the DC area, and the federal government they're thinking about letting go of a lot of people, and people are insecure right now. And certainly what we want people to be able to do is have peace of mind right now and think about their next right thing. And so if I may, I'm going to ask you, what would be your advice to this mass group of people that are worried now about scarcity of jobs and scarcity of riches? How might they apply Hill's principles and your teaching to this moment in time where it's difficult? Doesn't matter what party you're from. If job insecurity is terrifying, how do we make it less terrifying for them? I'd love your thoughts.
Yes. I would say get in touch with Hemma and join our self-discipline camp. And what we do every morning is we focus on what we want. So I would tell them, Listen, if you're in fear, that's exactly what you're going to attract. So put all your attention and focus on what do you want? What do you really want? And you may not know what kind of job you want right now. Maybe you want to keep that job. I don't know. But I always write out exactly what I want, how much I want to be earning, what do I want to be giving in return if I want to be a coach. I want to be whatever the job is. I write it out, how much I want earning. And that's all I focus on. I don't allow anything else to come in. I can't afford to let doubt and worry come in to sabotage. So please, if you're watching this, write out exactly what you want. There's a 6-step formula in the book, Think and Grow Rich. And that's all you focus on. And you just keep saying, one of my affirmations is, I have faith, this will form by law. I have faith, or you could say, I have faith, this is moving into form by law. And these are the kind of things I'll talk to myself about if I'm ever afraid.
That's such powerful advice, and I'm very grateful to you for sharing that, because there's a lot of pain and fear. And I think we need, in this time, we need that antidote to pain and fear. And again, ask yourself the question. I know you've got a survival brain that will tell you this is all silly and no, this doesn't work. But actually, I know you can tell us stories. I know the book's got hundreds of stories, and there's more to be shared since then. But I think we do need to ask ourselves, well, what if it all works out? And what is this, to your point about the train, and Mr. Proctor's point about the train, how are these carriages helping me? And if they're not,
let them go. There's a law that Bob would talk about, the law of vacuum prosperity. And so if you do end up losing the job, just know by law, it's opening the space for what you desire. Just like you said, what happened to you last year? It opened the space for what you really desire. So believe everything is happening for you. I believe that. I have that attitude of mind. Everything is happening for me.
Right.
Even if it's painful. I don't know why, but it's happening for me.
No, that's so true. And look, many of our guests, we take you yourself, we take you through this hero's journey, this idea that you've had a call to action, but there's always adversity. Any Disney movie you'll see, the hero has to go through some adversity, but that's where the growth really comes. And so while it might be hard to say this is for me, it's really true in the human condition that adversity is where we start to grow. And if you can see it for what it is, actually that therein lies the growth. So I agree with you. So we talked a lot about individuals, and less focus is on individuals stepping up to make a difference. And we talked about the individual benefits you can have. I want to really pivot a bit to legacy and leadership. So you've gone from your own journey to now impacting many journeys, and leave your legacy. Part of your legacy will be the leadership that you've done here. So may I ask you, how can today's leaders use the success principles that you know from Napoleon Hill and beyond to create positive change in their communities or their organizations?
Yes, I believe an organization, no matter what kind of organization it is, it's a group of people, right? And so the leader of the organization and leaders, their focus should be on working on themselves. Because I believe we have to lead from the front and be the example, right? So for any leader, are you working on yourself? Are you becoming the great version of you to inspire whoever is working under you, right? So I think about, for me, I hold it like, it's a funny story, but the book Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, I even crossed out the word devil on it because when I was traveling, I was scared people would think, what is she reading? But I think this is one of the most potent, powerful books that Napoleon Hill ever wrote for leadership, because it really impacted me and created a burning desire in me to be better, to be a better mom, to be a better leader, to be an example to my team. Like my team now are on 5:30 calls every morning. They love it. They love it. Right. But I had to do the work first. So that's my advice to leaders. Is you become the example by working on you. Don't be a drifter, as Napoleon Hill talks about it.
That's so important. It really goes back to that first question of who do they want to be, who not even what do they want to do, but who do they want to be? What's their legacy and how will they want to be remembered? That I think is the seeds planting the seeds of the vision, which then if we follow your path, once you've got the vision, you can make decisions.
Yes.
And then you can have,
starts with the vision.
What was it? purpose, plan, and action, PPA.
Yes.
But it seems so simple, but so often overlooked, that decision to be a better leader and then be passionate about it. Yes.
Yeah.
No,
And you have to keep making the decision. Like every week, I have to redecide, recommit, redecide. And then there's days I'm like, I don't want to be a leader today. I want to just go away and go on vacation, you know?
So tell us a bit more about Outwitting the Devil. I have that book as well. I think it's fantastic. Because it is controversial, again, the title is provocative. But what is he saying when he says Outwit the Devil? What does he refer to as the devil in this context?
It's a man-made devil in your mind, which is really comes back to fear. It's that voice, that negative voice, that's the man-made devil, right? It's fear. And so it's that negative voice that's trying to hold you back that, oh, Cliona, you shouldn't do that. They're going to think you're this. It's that voice. It's taking control of those thoughts, that voice. And also he talks about not being a drifter. A drifter is someone who doesn't have a purpose, plan, or action. It's someone who's just doing the mundane 9 to 5s with no thought for the future, not really tapping into their essence of who they really why they're here on earth. And I feel very convicted when I read that book because I cannot afford to be a drifter as a leader. A leader cannot drift. Maybe 1 day, 2 day, but that's about it because everybody's looking at us.
Right.
Your team's looking at you, your community's looking at you. How are you living? How are you living? Right. So that's really the message of the devil and, outwitting the devil. It's so powerful.
It's very powerful. And as you said, in the leadership position, not only are you drifting yourself, but you may be causing others to drift because you're
100%.
responsible for others. And the impact you can have at scale also works both ways, right? It can be for good or for the negative. Do you have any stories about, leadership transformation that you can share where somebody's applied the principles and seen the difference for their team or their organization or their community?
Oh my God, there's
on the spot.
I know there's so many examples. Let's see who's coming to mind. I would say Amy's coming to mind, her story. Amy came to us a couple of years ago. She was doing well in real estate. She was doing very well, but she knew something was missing. And she got into the coaching with us at the Institute. I think she was earning upward of $1 million a year or so, but she wasn't fulfilled. Mm-hmm. She wasn't fulfilled. She looked like she had the husband, she had the house, she had the family, everything looked good. Middle America, everything looks good. She's earning a lot of money for that area, but she was missing. She said she just didn't feel fulfilled. She came in, she did the coaching, she started studying with us, she started falling in love with the principles, and now she's made multiple millions and she became a coach and she's speaking on stages and she's inspiring women all over the world. She's built such a huge team under her that have come in and they're studying the material. And all these women are changing because of Amy, not just financial success, but I can't even count how many women now is in her community. She's making a huge impact all over the world now. Yeah, especially with women. And that's only in 2 years. That's
2 years. Yeah, it's amazing. And again, it reminds me back to the difference between rich and wealth. It looks like the principles work really well if you want things and you want money. But oftentimes, Amy did, you come to a realization that it really isn't just about the money, and then you have to regroup and think about what fulfillment means. So I ask you then, what is the difference between achievement and fulfillment?
That's a good question. Yeah. So riches, when Napoleon talks about riches, he talks about 12 riches, and money is the last on the list.
Yes.
Right. So fulfillment for me is living authentically of who I really am authentically, and expressing myself authentically, and giving away what my gifts and talents are. That for me is fulfillment. And also, obviously, as a mom, doing a great job as a mother, giving my children the opportunities and not handouts. I don't believe in handouts to kids. I believe they have to learn how to earn, right? So for me, it's fulfillment is living on purpose, expressing myself authentically, giving away my gifts and talents. That for me is fulfillment, and growing every day, growing and creating every day. It's so fun. That's fulfillment.
Oh, I love that. No, that's beautifully articulated. And, you remind me. So Tony Robbins says that growing and giving are the two parts of fulfillment. So you're right. The piece of, being authentic and then being able to grow and give, that aligns beautifully. And even just on the authentic piece, I used to work at Disney. I've got little kids too. One of my favorite movie quotes is from The Lion King, "Remember who you are."
Yes.
So that, when you say authentic, that's what that means to me. Also, I think Moana is "you know who you are." So between the two,
oh, that's so fun.
Really powerful in those moments where you maybe have achieved a lot by all standards. Maybe you've outstripped anyone's expectations of yourself, but still you're feeling empty or shallow. It may be that you have to remember who you are and find out what you've got to give. I love that. Now, you've mentioned being a parent a couple of times. As I said, I've got 2 little girls, and you've got a beautiful family as well. May I ask you some questions about the mindset, Napoleon Hill and children, parenting and Think and Grow Rich? I know there is a book, Think and Grow Rich for Kids, which I bought for my 9-year-old recently, but I'd love to hear your perspective, how you brought those principles home for your children.
Mm-hmm. So I believe, our children are sponges. I have 3 kids, 10, 7, and 6. And so I know that if I sit down and try and teach them the principles, they're most likely not going to listen to me. So the way I do it with my kids, I live the principles, and I be an example every day. So for example, if I hear my children say something that's negative, or they're putting themselves down, I'll have them pause and reflect and say, for example, my son, he has a little bit of eczema on his arms, right? And I heard him say the other day, we were in the store, and he said, "Oh yeah, my skin is weak," he said. And right away, I stopped him. I said, "Hold on, baby." I said, "Your skin is not weak. Your skin is powerful and strong and healthy." "No, but Mom, no. Remember what Mommy teaches you." So I'm constantly correcting their language, and I'm always building them up. I don't put them down when their grades come back and they're not great. I never put them down, because I know that's going into their subconscious mind. I always praise them. We work on gratitude. We pray together, and so I'm living the principles. Even when I'm going to buy something, or I'm scared, or I'm making a big decision, let's say a big purchase, I'm walking them through the process of how I'm thinking. So we live it. We literally live this way of life, this philosophy throughout the day.
That's beautiful. What lucky children, and what a beautiful legacy you're leaving for them. And you're right. Look, back to the metaphor of the train, you can help them identify the carriages as they come and call them out and ask if they're helpful.
Yes.
You also we have to be conscious as parents that we're not adding carriages, to your point.
Exactly. Yes. And sometimes we do.
We do. I mean, and it's back to programming, right? And again, not to blame parenting or culture or anything, but I remember, being asked where the other 3% was if I got 97. And sometimes I do that. And I'm like, whoa, rewind the programming. Don't do that. So it's beautiful. Yeah. Again, thinking about the train, I love this analogy, so I'm going to belabor it, but the train in our own heads needs to be paid attention to. Also, the train in our young children's heads needs to pay attention to. And what we do to other people's trains is another really important.
Oh my God. Thank you. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yes. Can we just foot stomp that? Because I feel very passionate about it. Be careful, folks, when you're giving advice to others. Don't just throw your advice and opinion around, unless you have experience and you have results. People need to pause, because too many dreams are ruined because of that. A reckless choice to just proclaim advice and opinions. Right. And so many people I've spoken to, I have to coach them in the end, because someone said something that they shouldn't have. They threw their opinions out there. "Oh, you shouldn't do that." Or, be careful with what you're saying to others. Stop and pause and say, "Do I really have experience here? And do I have results?" Will you give people advice?
No, I'm glad you underscored that. That's so important, even back to the leadership piece. I mean, we're all leaders in one way or another, no matter what your title or your position. And we can have a massive impact. People are looking for counsel, they're looking for collaboration, they're looking for advice, but we can inadvertently, even thinking we're trying to help, lower people's expectations for themselves.
Yes.
So that's really important. Or there's a very, I don't like this phrase, but people sometimes chop off other people's heads to make themselves feel tall. It's like, well, if I didn't achieve it, clearly you can't achieve it. And we have to be very thoughtful about that as well, because everyone's on their own journey.
Yeah. If you believe in abundance, there's no limit.
Correct.
So there's infinite supply. So why would you need to chop someone's head down, right?
Right. And I mean, it's not too late for you to grow, and it's certainly not too late for them to grow. So I think that's the beautiful part of abundance, is we can all grow. And again, they say do no harm. It's better to say nothing than do harm. But I love that you are now programmed to spot opportunities, even with your children, to say, oh, let's see if we can look at this another way and what else might be true. Really, really important, because we're told to get out of our own way if we're taking personal responsibility. But I love that you're highlighting how we also shouldn't get in anyone else's way.
100%.
Yes.
Or they'll end up going for coaching or therapy.
Right. And look, I want to just, another thing you made me think when you said that is there are lots of stories, I'm sure you've heard many, where people have use the negative reinforcement and come out shining, right? Where they're like, okay, you told me I couldn't, so I did this to prove to you that I can.
Right.
I want to hold space for that, but also that's quite traumatic and an unnecessary way to motivate people. Am I right?
Yeah, I would say yes, that does work for some people, and they use it as fire and fuel to make it. But it's also, it can be violent.
Right.
It can be violent. People are suffering later in life.
Right. And it's a gamble, because maybe 1 out of 10 or maybe 1 out of 100 uses it as fuel, but others.
Exactly. Others will end up in addiction or in bad relationships. The statistics will be more so in the negative end than the ones that actually come out of it and succeed.
Yes. So, I know teachers know this, the teachers in schools know the impact they can have on what they say on a child, but we're all capable of having that impact one way or another. So, and that really brings me to my last topic. I wanted to talk about legacy. I love talking about legacy. I think it's quite an inspiring place to be, creating a legacy that lasts, really. So let's start with Napoleon Hill. He focused on long-term impact. In your opinion, what does his legacy mean in today's world?
I can tell you his legacy. If you want me to share with you his 8-point plan of what he wanted to leave and perpetuate, do you want me to tell you?
Yes, please. And if and what we'll do is we'll share it as resources later for the listeners. But please, yes, share it with us now.
Okay. So he wrote this in the Golden Rule magazine in 1946. And so he said, this is my 8-point plan for perpetuating the boundless philosophy of Napoleon Hill, so it may be taught for future generations. Okay. So number 1, he believed that we needed to set up a school for teachers to be established, so it would help men and women study and train to become qualified teachers and counselors, thus enabling them to carry on the philosophy, which we're doing today. They're not called teachers, they're called coaches. Yes. And so number 2, these teachers/coaches should conduct primary classes where possible, carrying the philosophy to the individuals in a definite way and with a definite plan. Number 3, the Golden Rule magazine must be revived as a national magazine to carry success stories, those who need a philosophy, as Napoleon Hill has to offer. And then number 4, radio courses should be set up to carry the philosophy into the homes all over the world. Instead of the radio, it's podcasts. It's, courses that we're doing online, classes that we're doing online on Zoom. Number 5, the students help fund can set up a fund so the capable men and women of sound character can have the funds available to them when they decide to become a teacher of the philosophy, and which we do. We have scholarships, right? So number 6, the perpetuation of Napoleon Hill clubs at a national scale should be assured. These regular meetings of those who have studied the philosophy of Napoleon Hill constitute a proving ground of the philosophy. Such an organization is worth much more to the individual, and it should be expanded. So we're doing that now. we're doing meetups, Think and Grow Rich clubs and meetups. We're doing that in person. And then number 7, and somewhere where there ought to be set up a national retreat center for lectures, refresher courses that could be held for the coaches and the teachers, the students, men and women who are conducting their lives upon philosophy. And we do that. We do events, we do retreats. We don't have the center yet, but it's on the vision. We're going to have a huge building in New York. We're going to have an in-person building where people can come and study with us and take classes and lectures. So, and then number 8, there should be a Napoleon Hill Foundation Award every year for young businessmen and women for an annual individual achievement award. And so the foundation still does that. They give gold medals to people that have created achievement from these principles, this philosophy.
Wow, Cliona, what a gift of a roadmap that he left for everyone. And what a masterclass in operationalizing your intentions at scale in terms of legacy.
Yes, it really is. And what's incredible is I didn't get this until a couple of weeks ago.
Seriously?
Yes. Seriously.
Wow.
Napoleon Hill's grandson, he watches and he partakes in our events. He's been listening to us and he's like, Cliona, you're doing what Napoleon wanted to do. He found all of this. And he's his grandson, Dr. J.B. Hill. And he mailed it to me. I'm like, oh, wow. Do you think we're on the right track?
Well, I mean, my next question was going to be, what's your vision for Napoleon Hill Institute 2.0? I know you've just had David Meltzer,
yes,
the chairman. I've been listening to, I mean, he was one of our guests recently. I think you've just laid out the vision because it was maybe transferred to you in a different way, but you clearly are following the roadmap. Did you miss anything? Is there anything else you want to say about Napoleon Hill 2.0?
Everything I just described that I was naturally doing anyways, and now it's confirmed in writing. That's what Napoleon Hill wanted. The only thing I would add that Napoleon didn't put in here, and I've started to do this year with the Institute, is I believe, especially because I keep going back to outwitting the devil. Mm-hmm. In this industry, in personal development, what's missing is it's mind, body, and spirit. We're brilliant experts at the mind and even spirit. We're very spiritual. We help people grow in their spiritual journey as well. So we're great at the mind and spirit, right? But the body, why aren't we joining all of this together? So this year we are at Napoleon Hill Institute. We're doing healing retreats. So people can come detox their body, have organic juices, healing foods to regenerate their cells, to become younger, healthier versions, then move their bodies doing yoga. We have a new teacher who founded Amplified Yoga. So through movement, breath work, healing, eating the right foods, we're doing the whole 3 at the Institute. So that's the only thing I would add here is adding healing retreats for the body and healing modalities through movement and what we eat.
I love that holistic approach and an acceptance, a consciousness of the whole body and how important the things are. I mean,
yes,
very, very important. I'm so glad to hear you're doing it, and I can't wait to learn more. So a couple of questions to end here. For anyone that's looking to apply Napoleon Hill's principles, not just for personal success, maybe, to make a difference in the world, where should they begin?
I would say, obviously, you should have the book, Think and Grow Rich. Get the starter pack, Think and Grow Rich, Outwitting the Devil, but also his last book, Grow Rich with Peace of Mind. Okay, I would say get that starter pack, dig into it. And then we have free classes all the time at the Napoleon Hill Institute. You can join our free classes. We do events online, and we have a self-discipline camp. So get in touch with Hemma if you want to join our 5:30 in the morning calls. We literally have them in every time zone now all over the world. And we study together, we meditate, we give gratitude, we write out our goals. It's life-changing. Yeah.
I love that.
Yes.
I will definitely share some resources for our listeners because it is life-changing. And as you said, I mean, Napoleon Hill has put out so much beautiful content that you have amplified and added to that can make a difference. And peace of mind is one of my favorite phrases. I mentioned it already today. What more could we be looking for but ease and peace of mind?
Right.
So really glad to know. I didn't know that he'd written one with that title, so I'll be grabbing that myself. Back to the legacy to close. as I hear you describing what you've done for Napoleon Hill, the Institute, and then what you learned he wanted, his legacy, I think I have this vision of this baton passing where almost, he put a baton out there and you reached out and grabbed it and you're running with it. So maybe I just want to ask you, what's your part of this race? What's your legacy?
Yeah, I believe Don Green taught me this and I lived by it too. I don't care about leaving a legacy. I actually care about living a legacy.
Nice.
Right? So my everyday counts for me. Talking about passing the baton, that's one of the reasons why I reached out to David Meltzer. I'm very spiritual. I believe God said to me, bring in David Meltzer, bring in these people that can help you. This is much bigger than me, Hemma. This is huge, way bigger than me. So I want to pass the baton on to leaders like David Meltzer. And we have somebody else coming that I can't say anything yet, but very well known all over the world, joining our team. And so what I want to focus on is woman. And so once I get the right people and leaders in place, David Meltzer and some other people I can't mention, once they step up and lead the way, I want to go move and focus on helping women, and especially doing a lot of charity for women and helping single moms. That's the living legacy I want to focus on.
With that, then I'm going to ask you this last question, which is, what's one question we should be asking ourselves? My listeners should be asking themselves to ensure that they are living a meaningful legacy, to use your phrase.
One question, only one, right? Who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I? And when you discover that, then you'll live a legacy. And you not just discover it, but decide to be her or him. Right?
I love that. Any parting thoughts, Cliona, before we close?
No, I'm just so grateful. I would just say, make your life a story worth telling. We get one shot at this, from what I know, and every day is an opportunity to be part of that story. So make your life a story worth telling. That's my advice to all of you. Step into who you really are, authentically, with courage. You got to have courage and faith. Yeah. So thank you, Hemma. Thank you for your beautiful wisdom. Thank you for all that you do as well. Thank you.
Well, you're very kind, Cliona. This podcast is called Unless because of the quote from the Lorax by Dr. Seuss, which is, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. So I'm very excited for the world of women, for all of your clients and our listeners and beyond, that you're living your purpose. So thank you for what you do. We're very grateful. And I will make sure that I share resources so that everyone can find you and your work. Thank you.
Thank you.